it doesn't matter how difficult something might be. No one will understand how difficult it is. They just expect you to get it done.
Yes.
So, and I mean, you could be cranking out, I mean, like 30 hours for a project that should have been 5 hours, and no one's going to understand the work that actually went into doing that. Well, how does it feel to be back from Colombia, your first week back?
Mixed feelings. I'm happy to be at my desk, and I was happy to be in my bed. Honestly, I was smiling the whole way home just thinking about bed. I was like, yes, this is going to be great.
How's that different from you leaving the house every other day?
No, it's pretty much the same, except it'd been longer, so I was smiling more. But actually, okay, so yeah, but I do want to share this one. I shared this article with you about what happened to us on the way home. Not to us, but the person basically immediately behind us, which is a very sad story, but still worth sharing. So we're driving home from Chicago, right? O'Hare. It's about 3.5 hours to Iowa City. Jenny didn't really want to do it, but I like driving at night. I don't mind. I think it's fun. And I actually prefer it, especially on 80, because 80s, I hate Highway 80 because it sucks. There's so many accidents all the time. And at least if it's at night, there's fewer people. So I don't know. I just feel better about it. So anyway, it's 3 a.m. We're half an hour from home. And Jenny's sleeping in the passenger's side. I see what I think is a cop come across the median and then start driving at us. Keep in mind, this is a divided highway. 2 lanes, very big middle. And then there's a car driving at us. I'm like, well, this is crazy. Crazy thing is that's not the first time I've seen it on 80. But I just assumed it was a cop because I'm like, nobody's that stupid to actually do that. I don't know why a cop is doing this. Right. But anyway, I kept going, but I had a split second. I feel kind of bad because I thought about it and I was like, should I call the cops? I should, but I couldn't even tell when they had driven by if it was a cop because they were going so fast. I slowed down a lot. Jenny was still sleeping. I just couldn't stop thinking about it. But anyway, half an hour later, we get home. It's 3:30 a.m. I am like not hallucinating, but when you're like super tired and everything's kind of bizarre, you don't really feel like you're fully in your head.
Mm-hmm.
Go to sleep. I can't remember how much later. Jenny sends me an article. I think it was KWWL. And so I don't know which person it was, but basically with the mile marker and the timing, somebody very soon after us got hit and there was an accident and one person died.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah.
And I was a little shook for a while, and I'm still kind of shook when I allow myself to think about it. Because it's really sad. And
yeah. And this is like at 3 a.m. too. So like clearly this had to have been like a drunk driver. I don't see another like logical reason as to why like somebody would be driving the opposite way at 3 a.m. and then getting in a car crash. Like it's.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it.
Thanks for that downer of an opening.
Yep. Sorry. But anyway, I've been blessings or something.
I've been doing fine back. It's been chaotic since I got back. Life has just been, it was like, hey, life was like, I hope you enjoyed that vacation. Now
because you're not going to enjoy it from now on.
Yeah, because you're not going to enjoy this week or the next.
Quick question for you though. Did you notice any difference when you had to start eating American food again? Instead of the wonderful, amazing Colombian food that was both delicious and cheap and better?
Actually, no. Because like I have a garbage disposal of a stomach, and like I will just eat literally anything, and I could eat the same thing every single day for the rest of my life, and it doesn't matter what that is, as long as I like it, I can do it. It doesn't have to be like something specific like pizza or something. It could literally be ramen noodles every day, and it doesn't bother me. So when Lauren and I got back, first we had Chinese in the airport. because we were starving.
Mhm.
But then when we came back, I think we were like pulling into our neighborhood around midnight, and everything was closed. Even Taco Bell was closed. And this is on we flew in on a Friday. So Friday at midnight, Taco Bell is closed. I'm like, this is not good. So we went to a holiday gas station, and like I found some like prepackaged like cold cheeseburgers and a chicken sandwich. Yeah.
Good.
And then I took it home, put ketchup, mustard on the cheeseburger, put ranch on the chicken sandwich, and devoured them. And then I had a bowl of cereal after that as well. and it was
no problems with
it
you.
was
Got it.
no, it was
That's great.
wonderful. But I do miss Colombian food.
Yeah, their frosted flakes were genuinely better. I don't
Cody,
know what they did.
Did you notice a difference?
They did.
Tell me about it.
I liked them. They were just better. I don't know, like
frosted,
less sugary.
Oh,
yeah.
No. Like
Yeah.
you noticed a difference when you came back and started eating American food.
Yeah.
What did you notice?
My body just didn't like it. Like it was upset when I would eat things. Be like, nope, don't like that. So
yeah, I do miss. What the cool thing about like, so Colombians have this thing where they really love to take like corn and then mash it into a biscuit, and then they serve it with everything. So it was really good for Lauren since she is celiac and can't have gluten. So like she could, like, I don't know, they just like love these like corn biscuits, and like they are delicious, and they put like cheese and stuff in them too. So I do miss those because we don't have that. It's basically like if you're in the US and you're familiar with what grits are, it's basically the bread equivalent of grits. It's fantastic. But after 18 minutes of listening about Colombia in the last episode or in one of the previous episodes,
people are sick of it. They're like, shut up.
Well, it's going to be weird. Like the timing is going to
stuff.
be weird because we have like 2 episodes that are like locked and loaded, ready to go. But I like put the Colombia episode and the revenue episode before those ones. So the next 2 episodes, or 1 or 2 episodes after the Colombian episode were actually recorded before the Colombia episode.
Oops.
So it's not oops. It's just like, that's just how it worked out. So
just freestyling. Okay.
Well, everybody, we're
fine.
actually back. We're back in the saddle right now. It's January 20th. So when you listen to this, you'll realize kind of like how many we've got backed up. But yeah, Cody, what are we talking about today?
Okay. Working title is Freelancing Different Digital Marketing Skill Sets. And I wanted to talk about this before we talk about a different thing, because I think it's important that we go through and explain the different benefits and drawbacks of offering different services. And I say freelancing because if you're just starting out, that's what you're doing, right? You're the one offering the service. So even if you call yourself a business and it's just you, I mean, you're basically freelancing. So that's what it is. And we'll talk about the different types of jobs that agencies have and the different skill sets that you might have, and then the benefits, drawbacks of going with those or different ones.
I do want to mention like how great it is if like reaching out to us and asking us questions about specific things, because really the next episode that we want to cover is it comes from a listener, Frank, who asked us a question about creating a digital agency with a focus on graphic design. And since we constantly shit on graphic design as a service, he wanted our input on it, on like how would you make it put it into an agency? But before we talk about that, we wanted to have this episode about kind of setting the tone of the different services within an agency, a traditional agency, and then that point which you're there, and then you break out to do the thing that you did at the agency, but as your own freelance gig. So I just want to like lay that in there before you start to go off, Cody.
Yeah. And before I forget, because I will forget this, hey, leave us a review.
Yes.
Seriously.
On Apple. Spotify has reviews too. You can leave reviews on Spotify. I gave myself 5 stars.
Yeah. I don't care where you do it, but do write something so we get some feedback, unless it's bad. And then
just email
message us. Yeah. Because that's hurtful and we will cry. So only nice things. No, it's fine if you want to leave a bad one. But I will take it personally.
Yeah.
So
Same.
just know that you're hurting my feelings.
And I will find
Um,
you.
But seriously, feedback is cool, and it's nice to hear from people and what's beneficial, what's not, how we can improve, that sort of stuff. But yes, okay, let's get into it. First, skill set, and these really align with different jobs, different standardized jobs within a agency setting, is SEO, search engine optimization, search engine specialist when it comes to organic free traffic, whatever you want to call it. um Benefits, if you are nerdy, is that too mean?
Well, I mean, that's
Because if there's a stereotype, it's going to be the people who run ads, and there's like media buying, which we'll get to. They're more bros, right? I think back, if people watch Scrubs, like the doctors are the nerds. I think of them as the SEOs. And then you have the surgeons who are the bros. And that to me is the media buyers, because I did both. I switched over in the middle because I wanted to learn both. But, and the reason I did it, this will explain the drawbacks. You constantly work. There is never any point in time.
Wait, for which one?
For SEO.
Oh.
Compared to media buying, where you have all your accounts in a wonderful place, you're hitting all of your KPIs, you're very happy with your performance, and you put your feet back and your hands behind your head and you say, well done, I'm doing my job greatly.
With paid media buying, your KPIs are a lot more rigid. I mean, they're a lot more like subjective with SEO.
Okay, so the inverse then too, man, we're overlapping, but the inverse of media buying is when everything sucks, everything really sucks. But let's get back to it. SEO, it's a constant churn. It can be. There's always something to do and always something that you can do. And that makes it a grind. And comparatively, it doesn't make sense because you're working more, you're getting paid less, generally speaking, than media buyers.
And we are talking about like in an agency setting, like SEOs, when you work for an agency instead of like being like a freelance. And don't worry, we'll get to the whole like service as a freelancer versus service as, working for somebody. But SEOs, when they work in an agency, generally get paid less than people who run paid ads or do media buying through like PPC or social.
Yep. So let's go through all of them first, and then we'll come back and we'll say the benefits, drawbacks as a freelancer, because those are actually very different than just the job setting itself. But a subset of SEO is then writer, content writer. There's, I don't know, is that the best word to use? Is there a more fancy term that people say? Content writing is what it is, right?
Yeah, I think content writing is fine but content writers they're basically like the agency whore. Like they're like every department is pulling a content writer to write their shit for them. like you're writing like ad messaging, you're writing like maybe email content, you're writing landing page stuff, you're doing stuff for the SEOs. And sometimes you're just putting content on PDFs for sales material. Like that's just what a content writer does.
So yeah, if you are a writer, you already know this, that you are disrespected. That's the word. Because I went to UNI and I was a writing major for a minute, and I did it for a semester, and I looked around and thought, man, y'all are working very hard to make as much money as the people working much less. And that's when I switched over to communication. I'm not dissing writing. I love writing a lot, and I do it because it's fun and enjoyable. But that once you get to the point of being a writer as a job and you're making money for it, you're most likely not writing what you want to write. So there's a very big range of really everything: good writers, bad writers, well-paid writers, poorly paid writers. And that's in an agency setting in general. If you're a good copywriter, you can make a lot of money, both at a job and freelancing.
I kind of put writers and graphic designers in the same category though, because like they're both like their work is a craft, and like they get taken advantage of a lot because everybody is going to use a content writer for their stuff and everybody needs a graphic designer for their stuff. And when you're one of those and your work is art, just like content writing and just like graphic design, people just kind of expect you to do it. Just crank it out, make it pop. Well, like
make it pop.
I wonder how many graphic designers are on here that just heard make it pop and then just like had their ears bleed.
Yeah, they stop listening. They switch to something else.
But
Like Joe Rogan time, let's go.
but like when you have like an actual like a media buyer or something like that, and your work is like a bit more directly, I guess, scientific or auditable, it's a little bit differently. People treat you a little bit differently. But yeah, content writers and graphic designers are, they get passed around more than a hooker.
Yeah, so we can do that with next design. Always underpaid. Really. Yeah, I think I've known plenty of extremely talented designers, and they're brilliant artists, and they're always underpaid, but they know that, right? At least in a job setting that people don't respect art, and the money corresponds. So honestly, when we crap on design, we're not crapping on the skill itself. We're saying it's very unfortunate that you're that talented at something like that, and that people don't respect it enough to pay very well for it, or you have to work very, very hard to earn good money doing it compared to other types of jobs. Two more. I got account manager, but these can be called other things too. It's like you said, account executive,
strategists, consultants, just kind of like the general like face of the business to a client.
Yep. Yeah, the buffer between the nerds and the client.
Yeah, and there's two types of these people. There's like the pretty face that is just there to be the pretty face and communicate things, and there's also like the strategist who actually knows what they're talking about, but not as in depth as like a dedicated SEO specialist. This is similar to what I am at my day job, and then also similar to what I did at my at the agency that Cody and I worked at, which is like I knew a fair amount of SEO and a fair amount of PPC, but nowhere near the level that Cody did or the other SEOs did.
Mm-hmm. Finally got devs, and I just put front end and back end in the same thing. Man, it's great to be a dev, right? You make great money, you set your hours, you work from where you want. I mean, dev is, there's probably devs listening to this and they're like, hey, listen up, it's not that great. But if you compare it to everything else, everybody's jealous of you because you get to call the shots. You're in high demand. You can do, I say that in the US. I know it's actually very different in other countries too.
You have most job security too as a dev.
Yep. If you're a dev in the US, you're a rock star. Or you can be if you want to be aggressive and, pursue the highest paying jobs at the best companies or the lifestyle that you want. I mean, it's a golden age for developers for now.
There's one more. There's I was just thinking of video editor. So it kind of falls into like the graphic design aspect of it, but it's almost kind of on its own level too, because people are willing to pay a lot more to have a video editor edit a 5-minute video than a graphic designer create a logo.
That's true. It's like a specialty designer, basically.
Yeah. If you can do both, great. But all right, are we bringing it back to
Yeah. So those are the pros and cons in the agency setting, but things can change.
Did we talk about cons though? For like account manager, we just said what it was, right?
Oh, did I not?
Yeah, I think we skipped over that. So like,
did we say cons for all of them, or did I forget? I feel like
we can do a recap real quick here. So like SEO is like the con for that is you work a lot and you don't get paid as much,
right?
But it's a high value skill. For paid ads, you work less and you get paid more. However, when things are wrong, they're really wrong.
And yeah, you live with the stress. You go to sleep at night knowing that you're in charge of other people's money. I mean, you're effectively a financial advisor, and you live with that stress too. So you work less, but you carry more responsibility.
Yep. Content writers and graphic designers, most people who do that love it. It's their passion, but nobody gives you respect or really sees the value in what you do.
You got to fight for it with your pay and respect.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's hard to measure your success. Yeah, it's not impossible. It's just hard to. For account managers, strategists, consultants, account executives, it's very high stress. You're constantly dealing with client issues. You're not as knowledgeable as the people in like SEO and PPC, and it's a battle between making the client happy and also understanding what's really happening in the back end. The good news of that is you're usually paid really well, or not at all. So
yeah, I'd say
they're on like a spectrum. Like you can be an account manager making like 40,000 a year at the bottom level, but then also be an account executive, which is kind of in the same category, and making like 200 grand a year.
Yeah, it just means that they like you more and you're better at doing it.
Yeah,
but I would say the con is if you're a introvert, it's just terrible.
That's true.
Because anytime I have to do account manager-y things, I hate my life.
Mm-hmm.
So,
so web developer, the pro is
everything.
Yeah, pretty much everything.
I'll say outside of the US, because I know this about Japan. Some people just don't get it. They don't understand how hard it is. They don't know the logical difficulty. So people not understanding, it happens everywhere, but especially with devs, people don't know and they don't understand what's happening. And then consequently pay can vary dramatically too as a result of that, because people don't know how difficult or how easy something is. And then you have, the guy who took a course for 3 months and he thinks he's a dev now versus the 10-year-old vet and think that they're in the same league and they're not. So that's a con too, is that because it's such a wild field, it's from the best to the worst.
I would say I do have a con for devs though. And the con for devs is that like when, it doesn't matter how difficult something might be, no one will understand how difficult it is. They just expect you to get it done.
Yes.
So, and I mean, you could be cranking out, like 30 hours for a project that should have been 5 hours, and no one's going to understand the work that actually went into doing that. Mm-hmm. So that's a big con. I feel like when we started saying that, like, there's no cons to dev work, and there had to be a dev listening to be like, screw you guys. But I did want to.
We're just jealous. We're a little jealous because you guys make good money and what you do is hard. It's got a higher barrier to entry a little bit, right? So that's why the pay scales accordingly. But okay, let's talk about freelancing, these things. What's good, what's bad, and why you might want to or not do a certain one. Starting with SEO. What are your thoughts, Jake?
Well, SEO is that's a hot topic. Everybody wants to freelance SEO. It's lucrative.
Why do they want to do that?
That's a great question, Cody. Thank you for asking. It's lucrative. It is very high margin. There's no cost of goods sold really, unless you're like, you can have overhead of, paying for tools like Ahrefs and things like that. We don't pay for any SEO tools, but you can do everything for free. Google Search Console, analytics, literally everything. And a lot of the information out there is already out there and it's free. It's just the battle that you fight is the information you're actually receiving accurate, and will actually help your client or hurt them in the long run. So the downside of freelancing SEO is you really have to know your stuff with SEO, or else one, you're no different from the millions of people offering SEO as a freelance service. And two, you've got to do some deep dives into understanding SEO, especially now, as things become more and more technical. So it's also harder to price your services too, because it's like, where do you stop? You mentioned in the job positions, like there's always things to do. So where do you stop for working on a client site? If you're charging someone $1,000 a month for SEO, how many hours are you putting in? And then can you effectively get done what a value driving SEO effort in that amount of time, what you're charging, and then can you replicate that? It's a very hard service to scale. Mm-hmm. How about you? Did you have any pros or cons for it?
You said it all. People love it because it's straight money. It's straight cash. There's no barrier to entry. You can come in with nothing. You
can also fake it for months. I don't advise you to do that, but you can. It's very easy to pretend like you know what you're doing for months and months and months and receive a paycheck from a client forever. Oh, Sorry, All Might was calling my phone. Uh, but it's very easy to fake it, and I think that's why like a lot of like fake gurus or just like account managers who want to freelance SEO go to do it, is because you don't have to do the deep dives in order to sell it.
Yeah.
But also don't do that.
Yeah. But it is nice, and you have the same problem as everything else. When you have low barrier to entry, you have high competition and a hot mess. And I think the next one with the writing and content writing is it's SEO amplified, right? You're now, writing is like running, right? Most people can run. Nearly everybody, can. But then you have Usain Bolt, who makes very good money running, kind of like writing, right? You have to be outstanding to make very good money. And it takes time to develop a reputation and build the connections in the network where people understand your value and are willing to pay you well for a job well done. That's hard. It takes time. So
Yeah,
that's honestly one that's good if you can go from a job where you have connections to leave and then rely on that network.
it's also a harder value sell, because like it's harder to say like, hey, you should hire my services because I'm a writer. It's not like, unless they're like doing something they need a writer for, they're not going to hire a writer. And usually when they know that they want a writer, they know what they're willing to pay for a writer. And whereas like an SEO, it's more of a value sell. You can sell based off of the value that you're going to give to the client because you can track the results. Whereas like a writer, it's very hard to say my writing will do this for you, versus like, I have this service, I'm a good writer, you need it, pay me what you're willing to pay me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Paid is real paid. PPC, media buying, that whole category, right? Managing other people's money to buy ads and be accountable for their performance. I love it. That's why I switched. I saw people working less and making more money and thought, hey, I want to do that. And there's a lot of really cool benefits with it. One of them, one that isn't, is you have higher barrier to entry compared to, say, SEO, because people do come in with expectations of, these are the, I expect this cost per acquisition. I expect these kinds of results if I'm spending this sort of money. You also have it sounds dumb, but you have the difficulty of explaining to people, you have to pay me twice, or you have to pay, even if it's not me, if you're just passing it through, or setting it up so that they're paying whatever ad network directly, that they're paying that and they're paying you to do that. That trips people up. It does. It sounds dumb, but it's a mental hurdle that they have to get over is, oh, I have to pay the ad network and I have to pay you to do the ads on top of that.
Yeah. This is why we put it together into a package, and we just say, you pay us for the ad spend, and then we will place the media buy.
Yep.
And so it takes that away. I was also going to say with paid ads too, it's easier to know when things are, or it's quicker to know when things are a success or when things are a failure. Whereas with SEO, I mean, you've got 6 months to a year before you can even make that assumption. You can convince people that it's not a failure until a year or 2 years, just because of how SEO works. But people can also see wins in SEO within weeks, just by correlation and not exactly causation. Whereas like SEO, you see direct returns and direct results from your efforts.
You said it wrong. PPC, right? You said SEO.
Oh yeah, PPC. Oops.
Freelancing. This is a weird one. Freelancing account management / strategy. It's hard.
So this is where coaches come into play, I think, because I think a lot of people who are like strategy or consultants or account executives go into coaching and branding, because they don't actually do the work. They just tell people what the work needs to be done. And it's the same thing when they manage different departments and like a client comes to them and says, I want this. Like, well, they just go get the people that do the work. So in the freelance world, it's outsourcing it. And then these are also the people who would become CEOs. So like their own business. So like me. Whereas like I didn't come from the SEO background. I came from the account executive background, who learned SEO in order to sell SEO services with my account executive background. And then that's when I brought Cody on as the PPC specialist or the media buying specialist. And then we kind of became this dynamic duo of, hey, we have me who is 75% good at SEO, 100% good at account management, and then Cody who is 100% good at PPC, and then also 100% good at operations, which is a service that we're freelancing here. But
I'll take it.
But I think this is where, like, if you're in this setting in an agency, this is kind of what most people do when they decide to freelance marketing services. Is going to coaching and branding and things like that. The downside of that is you don't actually know how to do anything. So you have to actually learn, and you've got to find good people to outsource to. So my advice to you would just be learn SEO or learn PPC or learn something.
Yeah, I don't have good things to say about. That's not true. I have good things to say about account managers. And strategists, but I do get very frustrated when I see them jump ship and then try to do nerdy stuff that I've spent, all of my time doing, and realizing how much they don't know. And it's fine, but they're very good at talking to people. So they're good at convincing people to give them money, which is a skill I don't care to do. And I just kind of, bank on Jake. And that's why we partnered, because I'd rather just hang out in the background with my Cheetos and Mountain Dew. And
all the gurus out there that are like selling like the $5,000 high ticket consulting stuff, like those are like all the people who are like account managers in the past life. Like they don't actually know how to do anything; they just know how to sell it and talk to you.
Mm-hmm. Which is a skill. It is. It's a skill. But anyway, we won't.
Yeah. Well, and
we might get angry mail. Well, let's get hate mail from that one probably.
And this too,
I'm
because
an account manager.
Here's the thing though, is this too, because when you signed up, listener, for one of those online paid courses from an influencer, that influencer never actually taught a single course. It was all some other person, some other expert. And tell me I'm wrong. That is
I wouldn't know. I don't know. I've never done those things. Freelancing, dev work. Man, again, that's
constant sales.
Yeah. Okay. That's true. Because if you're not productizing in some way, if you're not, selling WordPress themes or something, you're doing individualized projects, or, you will need to constantly bid on jobs and that sort of thing.
It's easier to sell your dev work services for a higher ticket, to create an API connection from like a form to a client CRM. You could just be like $5,000, easy, $10,000. What are you gonna do about it? Hire another sketchy developer. The problem is like it's a constant inbound effort or a constant outbound effort. I feel like I'm always getting emailed dev work, ad hoc dev work stuff. And it's because it's like, there isn't a constant need for a developer unless you're employing one for full time in your agency. So freelancing is a little bit more difficult if you don't productize it. So like I am your IT guy, but that's the thing though, is like there's so many different facets to IT that one developer isn't going to be a good IT for every single solution. This is when like a developer who learns SEO or learns like web design for like SEO, that's kind of like a combination that crushes it there.
Mm-hmm. What about freelancing design services? What are your thoughts?
I think you're in the same boat as a graphic designer, only you can't charge a lot for your graphic design work. because you're competing with everybody on Fiverr who does, to the layman, equally as impressive work. And that's arguable because there's some real blunders on Fiverr, but there's also some like real decent stuff on Fiverr too. And you got to be realistic with that. So again, with the graphic design, it's a hard thing to freelance if you can't productize, or if you don't productize a service. So I think a really important lesson to learn out of here is, besides SEO and besides paid ads, every single position that comes out of an agency for someone who wants to freelance that service, you have to learn one or another of the other services in order to kind of productize something. So like content writing, account management, developers, graphic designers, those are all positions in an agency that are very hard to productize by themselves. But if you can combine that service with another service on like a reoccurring basis, like maybe you're a graphic designer, or maybe you're a graphic designer, but you learn foundational SEO work, just very basic level. You now have your retainer. Maybe it's a cheap SEO service, and then you offer ad hoc design work when requested. Or maybe you're a front end or back end developer, and you can do the same thing with SEO. You can make SEO kind of like your value pitch for reoccurring services. Or maybe you have now you start building websites, and you start managing and maintaining websites, not even doing SEO, just keeping them running, and that's your value. But with some of these services, when they're ad hoc and there really isn't a reason for a company to pay you over and over, like every single month for something, you've got to get into like habit of figuring out what you can bundle with that, where someone does want to pay monthly for that service. But it could be like, like lawyers. Like lawyers, people have lawyers on retainers where they just pay them a monthly fee, and then like they might not contact them for a couple months, but then when they do, it's like that much cheaper because it was worth it for them. You could do that with graphic design and development work. You just have to find out where the market is willing to pay for a retainer for one of those services.
You could do it as an account manager too, like as a general strategist. Mm-hmm. If you're doing basically consulting.
Yeah. The hard part is like Cody and I, that's not our business model, is like being on a retainer for things that like we don't actively do every month. And it's harder for us to, we haven't like fleshed that out. We fleshed out our productized service because that's our productized service. But if you want to productize a retainer model for graphic design work, that's homework that you have to do. You have to figure out what your market is willing to pay for that retainer service, and then also how much effort you're willing to put in at that monthly rate if your retainer service was to be used at its maximum potential every single month. Because you have to plan for the worst. If you underprice yourself and you say $100 a month, and then all of a sudden the client has you working for 30 hours a month, you might as well be working at McDonald's.
I think then you have to think of the next tier too, right? You have freelancing, which is you doing the service, but if you productized it, did you productize it for somebody else to do it too? Or is this dependent upon you? And then if that's the case, you're now a high ticket consultant and you need to gradually increase your prices if that's your plan to make money and to grow a business. But otherwise, you should think, how easy is it to get other people to do this productized service too, so that as I grow it, I can still sell it. I'm not the only one doing it. In fact, maybe eventually I'm out of the one doing it. I'm managing it and overseeing it now. Mm-hmm. And think about how hard or how easy, either way, it will be to get somebody else in that position to do the same sort of service.
There's an example of a client we used to have where they were a designer, but what they did was they went into homes and they basically cleaned out really messy areas and then made them like look really nice and organized. They were a professional organizer. That's what they were. That service by itself requires a level of expertise and design skill that can't be replicated in a process. And just like graphic designers and developers, well, maybe developers can, but graphic designers, you can't just process out a graphic design. Maybe you can. Maybe you work in like you create templates or something like that, and then.
Well, yeah, I mean, but at that point, you're crossing over from a productized service to SaaS, right? I mean, you've gone over to software as a service, where people are just buying a subscription model, but the scale isn't you offering the service; it's them paying for the software. I mean
more of like a graphic designer. Like if you're a graphic designer, freelancing graphic design work, you can't process that out because you are you who is the graphic designer. And
I thought you were saying like you're making maybe templates or something.
Oh, like that. I meant like if you like create like templates of like, I don't know, like flyers, and like that's what you decide to sell. Like, yeah, you could have one person create the templates and the other person like swap out the design elements using, Illustrator. But you can't really duplicate that. So our client, she cannot duplicate her business the way that we duplicate our business, which is hire college students at part-time and just follow the process. That's all you have to do. She actually has to get to a point where she can hire a designer that went to school for design or an expert and pay them 6 figures. But she's got to be able to get to that point where she can make that first and become that, get past that high ticket consultant part where she can actually have like a business of high ticket consultants. It's almost like owning like a real estate agency kind of. It's like every single person there is highly paid.
Yeah, that's a hard thing. No matter where or how you're doing it, it's always in what way or how am I going to find people to help me scale this as a service business. And people do it all sorts of different ways, but that is difficult when you're relying on highly skilled individuals, and it's a harder thing to bootstrap, I guess.
There are far, far more stupid people in this world than intelligent people. So
that's not helpful.
So this is why I think we built our business the way we did, is because we built it because we were like, we don't want to have to try to find intelligent people or like, highly skilled people to hire right out of the gate when we can make highly skilled people with services and processes that can be duplicated by literally a piece of paper and then giving it to a monkey and saying, okay, now do this. And then they do the work as we scale. And then, we make them into better and more skilled people at a cheaper rate.
Yep. I'm a big believer in, if the system relies on you, it's not a good system. You got to remove yourself from it entirely. And if it still works, then you're good. But if there are issues and they rely on you, then you got to go in and fix that.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
I think it is. So and then the next thing is, I think the next thing I want to talk about, which I'm setting ourselves up for a trap because now we have to talk about it. But actually, taking one of these as an example that isn't exactly productizable, and then showing you how I might productize the service if I had this skill. So we want to tackle, because our listener, Frank, who is a graphic designer, was asking this question to us, and I really want to kind of dive into some of the advice that I gave him of what I would do personally if I was a graphic designer and I wanted to productize something. And we'll go into things like picking the niche and, basically doing everything in the first 15 episodes of this podcast, but condense it down into 30 or so minutes.
Sounds good.
So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
See you.